Thank you, the chair. Thank you to my friend from Indiana. I counted 3 mentions of Hoosiers this time. Okay, that was it's a thing. All right, so thank you all for being here. Appreciate your patience with us. Let me start out by saying, let's frame this problem. So everybody needs healthcare. We can debate whether or not it's a right per se, but everybody needs it. And we all agree that it's too expensive and that our payment system is largely to blame. It is not operating like a proper marketplace. We have a couple things that we want in our system. We want to increase quality. We want to maintain our innovative edge. We're one of the few countries that still maintains these promises of quality. But we want it to be cheaper and accessible, okay? And now I would articulate that the only forces that really drive down prices while also maintaining an innovative edge and quality are choice, competition, transparency. And that's what we're here to talk about today. The complexity of healthcare makes transparency a really difficult problem. It's not like going to the grocery store. And so I would encourage this committee to focus on the entry point that everybody faces in healthcare, and that should be our legislative entry point. That's primary care. And what we can do to make primary care more accessible and easier for the patient, because that's your quarterback. That should be the person you use to navigate the rest of the immensely complex healthcare system. You can give me all the spreadsheets in the world on price transparency, I still can't figure it out. And I'm a pretty experienced patient, okay? It's so complex. And so I want to talk about primary care and my favorite type of primary care, direct primary care, with you, Dr. Ippolito, if that's all right. A lot of the conversation today is about the traditional care model, where we have patients interacting with primary care providers, specialty care providers in different clinical settings, all of that. It's complex, it's overwhelming. Can you talk about how personalized care models like direct primary care can play in creating a wider, more competitive healthcare marketplace? I guess I should define what I'm talking about really quick, which is effectively a monthly fee for a primary care doctor, which is all inclusive. It doesn't matter how many visits you have. It's independent of insurance. It's essentially a subscription service for healthcare. And in the Houston area, we're talking $60, $70 a month.
I mean, yeah, so to echo a point I made earlier, given what we see in the healthcare market, we ought to be encouraging just about any kind of competition we can get. And so I think that's sort of the baseline. When I think about direct primary care, honestly, it fits pretty well within what you might think of as a sort of optimal insurance design if you were starting from scratch. That is, you really focused insurance on protecting people in the catastrophic situations, but then you try and have competition under a more normal pricing structure for more regular services. And I think that's, at least conceptually, that's what a lot of direct primary care seems to be trying to get at.
Do you think it could have a positive effect on overall healthcare spending?
It's always tough with spending. I guess I'll say 2 things. The first is that, at least as I understand these models, they're often a capitated approach. Capitated payments do have really good incentives, right? So that's a good thing. The second point, though, is that when you think about primary care, it's often difficult to evaluate that on pure cost savings, because part of what you're doing is you're giving people access to care that they might need, right? And a lot of that care is really high value. Getting somebody on an antihypertensive or a statin is a really big ROI. And so I don't know that I would emphasize pure cost savings. Instead, what I would do is say there's a potential to really get more efficient spending. Right?
Yeah, well, certainly because you're keeping people out of the emergency room. And our goal should be this continuity of care. Our goal should be every American knows who their primary care doctor is. That's definitely not the case right now. You think like, do I call if you have a problem, do I call my insurance? Do I just go to the ER? Nobody knows what to do. You need a quarterback. All right, and I got 54 seconds. So, Mr. Severn, could you talk to us about, you get all this data, you guys have all this experience gathering this data. Can you talk about what we should do to make it more transparent and readable to the consumer so we can actually translate it?
We've talked about the hospital standard that, it's suggested right now, and I think we've pretty unanimously said we would love that standard to be enforced, and that does make these spreadsheets a little bit more apples to apples comparable. It also, I mentioned this a bit earlier, it's got a column that says payment method, and there's a spectrum of complexity to these payment methods, and what you'll find is not just price pressure, but you reward simpler payment methods. So I will go to the doctor that can say, hey, it's $50 up front versus some sliding fee or percent of charge.
Okay. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now yields to Dr. Miller Meeks for 5 minutes for the purpose of asking questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I thank all our witnesses who are here. It's a fascinating discussion. I could certainly